Good evening, everybody, or good morning. Don't know where you're based, wherever in the world. It is an actual pleasure to have you here, but most importantly, to have also Shiva with us today. Thank you very much, Shiva, for joining.
Thanks for having me. Great to be
Absolutely.
here.
Absolutely, it's been a long time. You have been on my list. It's a Shiva. You gotta come. You gotta come. I know. You are here. So absolutely, it's really great to have you. And of course, we always start with a statement that is, guys, whoever is in here, please ask questions, share what are your thoughts, and in general, we always like to encourage this. Interactive as much as possible. Shiva also has something nice to show us, so don't refrain from asking questions. So, Shiva, let's get this started, right? So maybe why don't you tell us a little about you, and then we will dive deeper into what we said is the topic for today, right? Topic for today is what is the role of a UX designer within when developing AR application for business to business, right? So this is gonna be the core, and we're gonna look into different aspects about what's the role of the designer, what kind of challenges he faces with regards to the organization, with regards to the design, a broader look, right? Because what we said is, and we're gonna say it again, designers are not just the people that make make rectangle with square edges or rounded edges, right? That is not what we're talking about here. We're gonna really go in depth into the broader landscape. Right. So Shiva, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. So my name is Shiva Mohseni. I'm a UX designer based here in Munich, Germany. And for the last 6 years, I have been creating digital experiences for different medium. Except the web application. So I haven't started as a classic UX designer, as many of you might know that UX design kind of like started with web design, but I maybe just did like a couple of web design related projects in my this professional career that I had. So I started, the beginning was basically with a German startup back in 2014 here in Munich. It's called Navis, and what their activity is basically in indoor positioning systems, as well as building information modeling and different use cases that you can think of when it comes to creating digital twins.
Okay.
And basically back then, as a customer experience designer / UX designer, what I was doing was not making round or edgy buttons, was basically doing the 3D surveying of indoor spaces. I've done so many buildings, factories, I don't know, churches, and then doing the post-processing on the point clouds, stitching the entire, like they had the tool that you could, like puzzle, put the point clouds next to each other, and then basically create the indoor virtual indoor environment that was basically OpenGL based. And back then I learned about the spatial UI, because when you have this indoor navigator,
Yeah.
which is basically like, think about Google Street View but for indoor spaces, then I learned to, you cannot really put a flat UI when it comes to like showing, overlaying some information. So I learned about spatial UI, diegetic interfaces, and these sort of jargons.
Concept, yeah. Well, concept more than jargons, because one thing is talking about it, one thing is doing it, right?
That is true. And but I need to mention, I started the whole VR, or like getting into immersive technology way before that, because I did my thesis on master project on creating the driving simulator and like natural user interactions in cars. But then after the my work with startup, I decided to enter the enterprise world. Maybe most designers think, oh, such a boring decision, but I don't regret it, because like normally people say that, okay, sky is not really your limit as a designer in enterprise. You need to follow some UX patterns or design patterns, and you're always limited to budget, project timeline, which, in agency, you're a little bit more creative. But then I started, like with a Dassault System 3DX side, mostly as a product owner slash usability engineer, but mostly my work was in usability engineering, meaning like translating the workflow from C++, because it's a legacy software, into user flow, which, like taught me a lot of technical theory back then. And I still was connected with VR because we had to actually create plugins for, let's say, HTC Vive or other tools for our 3D modeling software. And therefore, I was still connected to VR topic. And then afterwards, I came to T-Systems Multimedia Solution, which is a subsidiary of Deutsche Telekom. And yeah, 50% or maybe 60% of the time, I have B2B AR or MR projects. And when I don't have, let's say, AR, MR project, I will focus on human-machine interfaces.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, so that's good. I actually got, I would say, a question, more of a greeting, joining me from Washington, D.C., where we are building a human digital ecoverse powered by XR, and then, correct me if I say correctly, Guten Abend, correct? So thanks for the greetings, indeed. So what you just said actually links very well with the next question that I had, and that is, so you're now designing mostly for AR and B2B. So, and if you are here, you're listening, you might be aware, let's say, of the biggest application, the one that are most common, for example, remote assistance or maybe trainings. I was wondering, Shiva, do you have some application that maybe might be less known that you worked on during the past years?
By application, you mean for designing AR, or the application to actually give service in AR?
Yeah, so in use cases in which AR can actually be used for businesses, for them to profit.
So as you already mentioned, the most well-known are remote maintenance or supporting field engineers or onboarding people. But maybe less mainstream and common one, I cannot really say less known, maybe because within their community they're already well known, but I'm talking about in general, might be the manufacturing use cases. Because when it comes to manufacturing, it's a little bit harsh. It highly depends on the digitalization infrastructure in the manufacturers, and therefore we can say, for example, commissioning of robots or welding or cutting. There are all these automation processes that need to have a dry run before it really goes to the automation line, because robotic engineers or programmers or automation engineers need to make sure that all those commands that they wrote on their controller and they want to deploy it to the robot to start, working with the production line, whatever, it needs to work precisely and accurately. And the cycle time is the most important thing in automation, is the vital thing. And they need to actually maybe pre-visualize the errors or maybe mishandling some part. So that could be one use case, which hopefully, if my Oculus doesn't surprise me, I will show you the demo, if not the video.
Okay. So you actually brought something interesting that you mentioned. It depends also on the level of digitalization of the company you're dealing with, right? That is maybe something that also we don't hear very often. So maybe I would like to ask you that. So how does that work? Because there is always this vision, right? That AR, you go there, deploy it, and it's going to be... But I can imagine that depending also on manufacturing can be a rather traditional field, right? And also the level of infrastructure that they have available. So if we try to move this into like a more of a designer role, so what are the challenges that you face when, okay, now there is this project, we are started working together. How do you deal with discovering and then maybe adding your contribution to get the project to move forward, right? In such a landscape that is maybe a little more traditional.
Yeah. So just in parentheses, the first thing that in every B2B AR application happens is the market analysis. And I'm just talking about the market in Germany, which most of the SMM, which small to medium sized manufacturers are family run for, I don't know, hundreds of years. And some of them are still, I mean, they are using automation. Nothing is manual, but still it's a traditional automation. And there is this misunderstanding that, you know, some of these OEMs or SMMs, they think like digitalization means removing bureaucracy from their process, which is actually not true. It's actually more than that. So first thing first, our consultants, which are sometimes designers as well, they have this full knowledge of digitalization and the immersive technology and emerging technologies. So they should not give them some false promises. Okay, you can, I don't know, see your IoT data on spatial UI. It's going to be so exciting, you know, like that. This hedonism that is being promised to the factory owners, it will not solve the problem because it's just one layer, a nice shiny layer, augmented layer on something that is not done right from the beginning. So the infrastructure, the base is very important. So we tend to, for example, at T-System, we tend to consult for digitalizations, and then we come to mixed reality on top. And one other thing is like for designers, especially the one who are not doing, you know, like the passion work, but actually, because, you know, you always have the passion project next to what you're doing, especially if you're a enterprise designer. So when it comes to more pragmatic application, do not think sci-fi. It will not help. Just think about instinctual interactions as an example. Something is, it's all about the cost and benefit. So the interaction should not really cost a lot. It should be like a really simple air tap. Even sometimes that simple air tap could really make the user tired. And the other, I don't know, like there are so many things I can say. You can think about when writing your, for example, user stories, because you're working agile, you think about KPI-centered design rather than purely human-centered. I'm not saying you should omit the human-centered design. Obviously, the human factors are the most important thing, but in enterprise design, you need to, you know, use the, for example, the methodology of jobs to be done. There is one, I don't know, automation engineer, he wants to do a task, and let him do a task. Do not really make them busy with some micro interactions.
Okay, Shiva, you are opening a word to me. So let's get it. No, because I need to know this. I need to know this. So you're talking about human-centered KPI, and the other category was the you mentioned
jobs to be done versus persona.
Right. So can you give us two examples of those two? Right. So let's say that there is a human-centered KPI, another is, let's say, process-driven KPI, or whatever you want to call them. Can you give us an example of designing for one of them and designing for one of them, high level, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I will start with the KPI centered. Imagine there is this boiler in the factory, and this factory is, let's say, making some, I don't know, cosmetics product, whatever, something that there needs a boiler. And think about the environment is super chaotic because it's a factory. So you need to make the user do the task as fast as possible and as efficient as possible. So in that case, when you think about creating persona versus jobs to be done, you have to think, maybe it doesn't matter so much to me that this persona, this specific user, a hobby, what are the hobbies of this user, as an example, or what he does in free time, or I don't know what color he likes. Maybe it matters if he's colorblind. That matters a lot. Of course, but there are some elements that are very important in B2C applications, which is more personalized. Like I care about this music, I care about this color,
Or let's say
I'm a
that
social person.
yeah,
But
yeah,
in this
yeah.
case, it's jobs to be done with some very vital human factors, like being colorblind, I don't know, accessibility topic, or do not make the user tired. These very, very basic and vital human factors are involved for sure, but the rest is jobs to be done. I want this boiler to, like fill out this whatever container, and the cycle time is like 3 seconds. I don't know. Maybe that's a perfect. I don't know. It's just an example. And this HMI in a form of, I don't know, mixed reality or whatever you're designing should really deliver that end product and job to be done. That's it.
Yeah. So then, from the moment that you think about what you are designing, it's not necessarily about those. Let's say if you're designing a fitness app, you might okay, but what age is the person? Maybe what kind of things, attitude he has towards gaming or whatever. No, that the point is no. Let's look at the cycle time. Let's look at what is the job that has to be done without fluff, because that is the key to basically
Exactly. And the surprising fact, even if you want to go with persona, the demographic of, let's say, robotic engineers or workers on the line is somehow similar. I don't know why, unfortunately, mostly male. And no offense, but what I mean is like, it's just like maybe less women involved in these kind of jobs. And so it's like, it doesn't make sense. You create 10 personas and they're all like male in their, I don't know, 25 to 45. So it will not help you designing something spectacular. So
I have some. I'm just throwing some questions that people are asking. So one question is, which are generally the use cases in telecom domain companies like Verizon, 4AR, from enterprises project perspective? Have you ever worked on any of those?
So there are two things. We developed a product called AR Field Advisor. It's actually available right now. You can give it a try. It's an iOS, Android, mobile AR application, as well as desktop, which is developed for Windows. So you have this expert sitting somewhere remote, somewhere in the world, and you have your field engineer on the site. And one very I don't know, like very, very basic. We think it's basic, but it's actually super important to the manufacturer. You have the electronic manufacturer, and then there is this something like a kit that you have. I wouldn't exaggerate if I say you have, I don't know, 500 cable, colorful next to each other. So that level of precision of your holographic annotation that is made from the expert side should be so precise that, for example, when I say that, okay, cable number 432 with this color, you need to annotate on that. And this level of precision we're talking about, and this is actually super important, because if you plug something wrong, you will actually burn the device. So this kind of precision is super important, as well as accuracy, and that's one of the examples. The other thing, we have also remote maintenance projects, which are mostly with standalone MR devices like HoloLens 2.
And are those still in the telecom domain?
Yes.
Okay. So those still...
By telecom, you mean the brand or the telecommunication?
Yeah, this is a good point. Which are generally the use case in telecom domain companies like Verizon, 4AR from enterprise project perspective? So yeah, I think we can interpret the questions in different ways, right? Yeah.
I mean, probably if by telecom, it means the brand itself. It's mostly telecommunication as well. Also the property management in terms of property of telecom. Like you have some applications that you can work on your physical server sides, and then you have these racks that you want to put your arrange those racks. I don't know in details about it, but normally in telecommunication. And when we have the external project, is mostly in manufacturing.
Okay,
Mostly.
okay, clear.
I mean, Germany.
Makes sense. It does make sense.
OEMs, so.
It does make sense. I have actually a question for the people that are listening right now, and that is, who are you? I mean, in the sense, in the sense, are you people that are listening designers, or are maybe some people that are instead that are interested in B2B applications for mixed reality, augmented reality? And this is, while you guys answer, then I'm also going to go back to another question that's being asked. So please tell me, are you more people that develop for this new medium, or the people that are going to receive it or maybe exploring this opportunity? Because the next question is, for Shiva, would be kind of like, what advice would you give to business customer, right, that are trying to look into this? So you have been from a designer side, right, and from a supplier, right, technically. So what advice would you give instead to all those maybe, right, that are looking to explore this new technology based on your previous experiences?
Yeah, so basically the answer will kind of come back to the fact that I said, like, they should be digitalization ready. So the biggest advice, if I can say, as a UX designer, is to have an open mind, but again, a realistic open mind about this new technology. If you think like you can just put a layer to see your IoT data on spatial interface, like literally sometimes you have, I don't know, 20 of checkboxes that previously was on your HMI, but right now you want to do it with HoloLens. No, don't think about XR in that sense. Think about how it can really, I mean, it's actually our job to tell them how it brings the added value, and we do that gladly. But customers should really come with an open mind, not to expect sci-fi or magic, but like, sometimes they also think just to see the potential. They only expect to see the potential of the technology, which is again the same problem. Like, instead of using your HMI, you see the UI on the space, which just makes the user tired, because HoloLens after 1 hour might get warm and it's not comfortable. So again, like, think about their infrastructure, have an open mind, and do not do this do-it-yourself approach when it comes to digitalizations, because I know for a fact that there are some companies, I will not name it, but big companies here, they want to have their own IoT platform, which is perfectly fine, but sometimes it's always, maybe faster to use to kind of like offshore this service from people who are giving this service for years, and they're professionals. So maybe a little bit less of DIY approach when it comes to digitalizations, and let the experts do that, would be also another advice.
Makes sense. And that's why I think the first thing is that you don't come with a solution. I want to see all the 20 checkbox in air, mid-air. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I have a business challenge, right? I want to do this. I want to be, let's say, lower the downtime, for example, or whatever
cost,
is
yeah.
exactly whatever is the challenge. So absolutely. And then based on that, find experts that can help you identify the problem, scope it, find a good solution, and might not even be AR. Right. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So that is an important thing. Absolutely. We got an explosion of questions, Shiva. So are you ready? Okay. No.
I hope I can answer them.
That's good. That's good. So we have quite a lot, and it seems also that there are quite a lot of designers in. So I'm gonna go for one from Nate. How do you ultimately test your human factor design and theories? Is it all done virtually, simulation, test groups?
Combination of all of them. And actually, that's a very, very good question, because imagine you come up with some new UI and interaction for your enterprise AR application. You need to test the sanity of it. And how you're gonna test it? There are methodologies like body storming. You literally it's not always purely digital. So you can actually, before you design it, you can test it with, as I said, body storming, or this paper prototyping, playing the roles. That's what we do with customers, in the yeah, we call it like design thinking workshop for XR, which is more like spatial design thinking
So, and
workshops.
this is something that you actually do, right? So we are not talking, oh, sometimes you can, no, you actually do this workshop where
Yes,
you are with the
yes,
client, you
yes.
do this role play.
Re- we really do role playing.
Okay.
We sometimes take the HoloLens and we just let it off, not running, and then we just tell the customer to wear it for, I don't know, half an hour and hold your arm like that to see if you get tired. So you need to compromise a lot. There is no specific methodologies that I tell you, okay, we use that. We just try to, compromise and be creative and use every possible way. Like when you do design for 2D with Adobe XD as an example, you can test your click dummy in test sessions with pilot customer or with the targeted user. But in this case, it's a little bit different. It's variation of methodologies.
Clear, clear. I'm gonna keep shooting. What data measures are more are blah, 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 blah. What data measures are most important for developing AR environments? The good point is maybe what is an AR environment, right? That is maybe something. But please go ahead, Shiva.
I'm not actually sure if I understood the question, but I will just try my best. Um, Development is one topic, and designing first is another topic. So let's say when you're in the, well, obviously everything happens in the agile and iteration of design development, but let's say you always start with a concept and then you go to the you test the concept. You see like, okay, it's not too sci-fi, because that can happen, it goes too sci-fi. New technology. So you just make some concept, and nowadays, like for the last 1 or 2 years, at least for me, with the rising of this XR collaboration platforms, tools like Tibori as an example, they are helping a lot to design the virtual environment, let's say first, and then the factors. There are so many things. I mean, design-wise, you have to think about the when talking about VR, you have to think about the presence, you have to think about the storytelling. Very interesting is like people are experiencing stories because maybe in some other medium you're just telling a story, but in immersive technology you want the person to experience a story. And surprisingly, in enterprise application there is a story. It's not a very, like dramatic one, or I don't know.
Okay.
But there is a story to be told about that process or something, and you want the user to experience that. So that could be one of the factors. You have to be a good storyteller as a designer. You have to plan A to Z, like this customer journey that you plan for 2D applications. You have to put yourself as a first person, like in games, first person shooter games, as a first person, how the story is from your perspective, and then put yourself in shoes of the customer and tell your story from that perspective. Yeah. There are also some technical technical methodology, like, I don't know, foveated rendering to improve performance, mostly in VR, but you can also they're also in MR. There are so many. I mean, it's like I cannot really say it all in one session. There's also spatial mapping, super important to how to improve your spatial mapping, because then you have your the agents, these augmented agents, could be a ball, could be whatever object you want that to act natural.
Yeah.
And therefore spatial mapping is super important,
When it was actually quite interesting when you mentioned about storytelling for B2B. Yeah, I kind of like thinking, I mean, for example, you might have an operator, okay, once he put the headset, in which emotional state he's in, because maybe there is a warning that something is going wrong. He puts the headset, he maybe needs to find the place where this is happening, and then okay, maybe he gets a phone call where maybe his boss is asking something. So there is still a story and interaction with the equipment, with the app, with the application itself, within an outside environment. Especially in AR also, there is of course a lot coming out from the environment that we cannot absolutely forget, right? So
you know what, Gabriele, the thing is, you should not make it too immersive when it comes to, let's say, B2B use case in a manufacturing environment, because as I said, you're closer. I mean, there are these cells, automation cells, that you don't really get close to the dangerous zone, but there are these collaborative robots that are working on some, they could be, you know, like the cognitive load on your application should not also be too much, so the user is too focused. If they get an error somewhere, they miss that error and something disastrous happens. True. You should always balance what's going on with the cognitive load and the level of engagement as well.
Yeah, with the surroundings. So I have a question from Nate that I am also going to answer, Shiva. Then I'm going to hand it over to you. But it's do you work with a team of designers collaboratively to find solutions? If so, remotely or in person? What tools do you use to collaborate? So the way I'm gonna answer it first is that we at Tvori, we are basically building the solution for this. So we are really building a solution on Quest that helps us that helps designer to be in the same space and ideate and collaboratively try to find solution. So, and this is something that if anybody is interested can go on the Tvori website, download and or not download, subscribe as a beta tester, and we are rolling out now a closed beta test. We are going to expand it soon, upcoming weeks. Please do join, because this is exactly, it was not staged. I have no idea why Nate asked this question, but thanks for asking. But what about you, Shiva? And this maybe also could be a good bridge for the next part, because I see that there are a lot of designers in the team, in listening. So what about collaborative tools? And then right after, maybe, why don't you guide us through the step-by-step process, your workflow to basically to design an AR app?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I have to mention I'm also engaged with Tvori Group, and I'm so happy that I can actually use the tool and hopefully become a super user someday. So regarding the workflow, I'm just gonna skip the part that is purely concept and marketing and, you know, like consultation in the beginning, because, you know, in enterprise, definitely a UX designer can be involved in that process. I mean, I've been doing some of the workshops as well for the customer. Yeah. So just be ready for that, you are a generalist when it comes to enterprise, or at least my experience, you know. So the first thing is to have some sort of internal session with the developers, because you have some documents from the requirement engineering part that comes to you as requirements, and now is the time to really brainstorm, design, and develop, and everything happens, you know, in a really agile way, because, you know, you don't have time, the project is limited, and guess what? Customer will pay you some amount of money, they don't pay you, so you don't have the luxury of paying too much money, spending too much money of the project on some fancy interactions. So think about MVP, like minimum viable product, and design with that mindset, and always be in contact with the developer, because you know, like there were some let's say not really problem, but in one project you wanted to have some fancy interactions with, you know, like sliding, and, you know, like it involves some animations, and then we realized that it will take us 2 months to really implement those interactions in the application, which at the end it was not even tested, we were not sure, so we just went with the AirTap solution. It works, it's fast, and in that case, for example, it really depends, but yeah, be always involved with the developer, so you don't just design however is fancy or however you think is nice, or you always have to be aligned with your team. Can I actually share a video about one of our brainstorming sessions?
Go ahead.
Okay, so just want to check if I...
By the way, there is Pamela is asking, do you have Twitter? People want to follow you.
I do. I'm on Twitter since 2013, but I'm not that active. But if, yeah, I mean, why not? I
People
will.
certainly have missed it, what you said. So say it again.
Actually, I'm not that active on Twitter, although being there for a long
People
time.
love
But
you; they want to see you. So I'm gonna give people what they ask.
so I think LinkedIn is better because I'm more
Agree.
active on LinkedIn. If
Agree. LinkedIn, also Gabriele Romagnoli, you can follow me and
yes,
learning about all sorts design and AR and VR. So Pamela, follow us on LinkedIn.
thanks. So I will share my screen, and please let me know if you see my screen.
We do see the screen. We also hear the music. Adds the vibe.
Perfect. Just one little intro about it. Because of the pandemic, obviously, we could not really gather all together. So we wanted to have a brainstorming session about smart home and IoT, and we wanted to generate fast ideas. So I came up with this idea to, really make the environment. And by the way, we use this XR collaborative platform called spatial.io. And using their search feature, I just populate the room, and really try to leverage the technology, because mostly people use it for meetings, but it's obviously more than that. So I created the room, and in 10 minutes I think we generated almost 30 really cool features, not just ideas but really functional features. And I just let you watch it.
So that's the kitchen table. Oh, the kitchen! It's a fully functional kitchen, Shiva.
Yes. Also with food and yeah.
Hier hinten hatten, glaube ich, mehrere Leute die gleiche Idee.
So I will just pause it because it's in German. So yeah, so that was one way of generating ideas instead of logging on to our WebEx and just talk and talk and talk. We just did the body storming, and it was really fun. And yeah, we thought about doing the same when we give workshops to the customer.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. Look, Shiva, I think at some point we should organize one when the Tvorion Quest will be more widespread, because then you really have the chance to. Because spatial is great. The fact is that you are limited in the sense of stuff that you can create, right?
True.
I mean, you have those basic assets, you have the post-it, and that's it. Well. Ideally, you would want to, for example, create maybe an interface, make a button, and show, okay, what's gonna happen here when, for example, someone sit on the couch, the TV, how should behave, for example, or maybe what's gonna happen to the heating system. I mean, in that case, right, the idea, I can imagine that could be basically endless. So, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. So, I have another question. Let me see. Maybe what we can do is that since we so why don't you maybe tell us a little bit also about that design stage, that prototyping, that creating some concepts. How do you do that? So after you have generated those ideas, right? Maybe you went during body storming. Then what's next? How do you create some content in a sense?
Mm-hmm. First thing first is again the wireframing, and it doesn't matter for what medium you're designing for, because in B2B use cases, still mobile AR is the most convenient one, and especially the one that think about Nreal light that you can tethered mobile AR glasses that you can actually connect to your mobile phone. So these are the most convenient ones. So think about it. When it's mobile AR, it's pretty much similar pipeline when you know, like you do the low fidelity wireframing, and then you just discuss it with the customer, test it, you discuss it with the development team. The only part that is a little bit different is when you're creating some of the you know, 3D assets that are supposed to be in the spatial part of the mobile AR, which you know, like it's very great that you can go have a look at AR Kit and AR Core design library. It's really good enough to kickstart, and maybe more than enough. It tells you so many things about shadows and occlusion. Sometimes you don't even need them, you know. So in that case, when it's mobile AR, it's not that much different when you design for mobile applications. But when it comes to a particular device, like let's say HoloLens 2, the design, it's better that you follow what they're saying in their design pattern. And in my case, we use the MRTK, because why? When you have everything there, you have the I will give you one example. You know, like my first project in T-System was with HoloLens 1, and there was no MRTK, Mixed Reality Toolkit from Microsoft. And, you know, about this additive screen that, you know, like, you know, put a lot of light to the elements in the UI. That's basically in mixed reality glasses. That's how they render the object. All we know, or me as a designer, was that, okay, if you make the color of the UI element darker, it will be more transparent. And if you make it lighter, it will be so glowy and shiny. And I was just testing and guesstimating based on that in Photoshop, because I didn't have any tool. But right now, you know, like I can, for example, when it's a VR situation, I can simply see it in Tivori. If I want to test it, hopefully if Tivori comes on any other like mixed reality device, it will be possible to check your color palette, for example. But what I'm going to say is that it highly depends on which device you are designing. Then you can actually check the either the toolkit they have, because they have a lot of recommendation about the color palette, the field of view, and interactions. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. At least it's very fast. And yeah, I mean, if you have new ideas, it's cool to do it for your passion project. But in enterprise, you don't have the luxury of trying out. Trial and error does not happen in design in enterprise. It's so fast. You need to be so agile, and you cannot risk it.
Yeah,
Invent some.
It's a good point, and that's, I think, where a lot of the innovation, or certainly and experimentation, happen more in the entertainment side, where also there is more opportunity to explore UX and in general new things, because in that case you can take bigger risk in a sense, right? It's a different ballgame. But I was wondering, why don't you maybe show us some of the things that you have made in Tuali, so that people can also have an impression of how that looks like?
Sure. I think I will not just try the streaming, because you know, like I don't know, my Oculus Link is just playing with me at the moment. So I will just share a video.
Sure.
Okay, share. So before I start, I just a little bit intro about it. So remember, you asked about the less known use cases in industry, and I specifically mentioned manufacturing. So one of the processes of manufacturing is welding. So basically, you weld not you, but the robot weld the parts together. And the automation engineer, before the you know, like the whole process starts, needs to make a dry run of this whole process. So what could actually help them is to pre-visualize the welding process, which will be shown here. And these things that looks like, I don't know, some gooey things, they are the welded material, and it's called a welding seam.
Okay.
So yes, seam, SEAM. So I will just play it and explain a little bit over it.
So here in this case, we see that there is this kind of like simulation for the field of view, right? So that's what basically you see within. So those are all AR elements that you have designed.
Exactly.
Right. So, and that is the scene that is added on top of the.
Exactly. So here it's you see like there is some residue and extra of welding material here. So then by pre-visualizing it, because these whole commands were already written to the robots by the automation engineer. So with this, then automation engineer realized that they have to make some changes to the command because there are some, I don't know, extra welding here that should not be. Yeah. So that could actually tell them to go and change the command before even waste time on time or material on dry run, on really physical dry run. So that's one example. The other one is actually about the when you have the part on the automation line. So this part is fixed with some grapes. Well, obviously this is very schematic, but this is fixed and it should not move. And how automation engineer fix these parts is by measuring them, and they have a blueprint. So why not testing it before actually starting the whole process to test if the part is aligned with the blueprint? So that's why you see this animation, and you see the blueprint is actually aligned. The part is not rotated. At the same time, it could give you, some warning that your fixture, you see here, is rotated. So your blueprint will warn you that is not aligned. This is not aligned to your fixture. Then you can get it fixed. And so basically what I want to say is that when I mentioned do not really think sci-fi and all these, I don't know, crazy hot interfaces, this doesn't work. Simply a diegetic interface like in the example. Sorry, my camera angle is not really optimal because of my laptop. So what I was saying is like sometimes you have to see in the context what kind of UI makes sense. In this context, the diegetic UI makes the most sense, and it actually saves a lot of time for the manufacturers.
So I do have a question from Alana. I've certainly pronounced it wrong. Apologies. But are there ways to connect AR design no-code app solution like Bubble? Do you know Bubble?
No.
No, me neither.
I know Adobe Aero or.
So are there ways to connect AR design no-code app? So let's put it like that. What no-code app do you use to design?
Tivori.
So and why is that?
I mean, first of all, I'm not afraid of code, and I encourage designers not to be, but again, people, they have their comfort zone, so I cannot push anybody. But why is that? Because first of all, Tivori really makes you to do this spatial creation of the whole environment, which, before I was doing it with Blender. And I'm not a 3D UX designer, so it's like a 3D designer, so it was really difficult for me to do so. But with Tivori, for example, it's super easy. You also have Microsoft Maquette, but Microsoft Maquette is free, give it a try, but it doesn't have animation. You can.
So that story about the blueprint going down and changing color, you couldn't have done it basically.
No. And so with Tivori, literally, I made this, I think, in less than 5 minutes or so. You have your assets, the support of the texture. I really like because you support the OBJ and you support FBX, which in some XR platform, the 3D asset support is not so optimal. So that's why, for me, Tivori is the most mature VR or AR, like they even have the AR simulation within VR. So I'm using Tivori myself. I use so many other alternatives which were 2D basically. You have Vectari as an example. You make a 3D stuff. Adobe Aero for mobile. Not bad. I mean, if you want to try a mobile, why not? We can actually use it. But for me, being fast, like rapid prototyping, is super important. So therefore, I need a tool that I can, just like transfer my idea really fast without any hassle and being too much in VR, because to be honest, I personally get headache if I'm too much in VR. So I need a tool that I get the job done really fast and I get out of VR so I don't get headache.
Yeah. Actually, maybe also a question to the people that are listening. Do you ever use VR tools to sketch, prototype, or do any sort of design? We mentioned Maquette, we mentioned 2D. There are others now on Oculus Quest. I mean, actually, I'm inviting you guys
Gravity
to
Sketch, for example.
Gravity Sketch. There is also Minsar now is also on Quest. There is Tilt Brush. I mean, there are various, right? And I think that one of right now 2D is. I personally think it's very nice. It's not just because I'm part of the team. I just really believe it's a good tool. But of course, it has a major drawback that is basically running on PC only in a sense, right? So you could do a lot, but the problem is that it's not that accessible very often, maybe to designers that don't have a VR ready PC. Something that again we are fixing with the version of Quest that is going to have a different purpose. But nonetheless, the question still stays: what you guys are using? Do you have some tools that you recommend for creating your own design, creating your own, and sharing those ideas with others? So maybe Shiva, while people answer, so to get a bit of an understanding. So if you could still look at from a content perspective, right? So from the way you get through this user flow, right? What are the most challenging aspects of designing those AR applications for B2B?
The challenging part, I would say, is the phase that you need to somehow, transfer the message to the customer and make them understand. Because before these spatial tools, it was really difficult to convince a person to use mixed reality applications with a PowerPoint slide. So to put everybody on the same page is a little bit difficult. And the second thing is, as a designer, you really need to get out of your comfort zone. You need to be, I don't know. I'm just like telling my experience. It was also difficult for me to, get myself familiar with Unity. But just designers should not be afraid of these tools. Not to mention, I used Unity in 2011 for my master project.
Those were the times.
Trust me. And with the first version of Rift, with those bulky, big, edgy frame. And trust me, when I compare Unity, this version, the current version, to the version of, 10 years ago, it's much, much better and user-friendly and designer-friendly. And as I said, I was not having an open mind about it. Still, I was still a user, but I was like, it's not like, let's say Figma, or back then I was using UXPin for 2D stuff. I didn't do too much of 2D, but I was trying to simulate 3D stuff, indoor viewers and virtual indoor spaces in UXPin. So a lot of Photoshop, a lot of, trying to find, it's just such a waste of time, if you put that time in learning the right tool, you will save more time and it's less hassle. Because trust me, I use some cinematography tools just to tell my story, to tell my concept.
Yeah, and actually, this I just cutting you because there is a question that is very related to this. So what you're saying is that, so what kind of deliverables do you provide to your dev team to communicate the experience? And here I would also like to throw in the clients. So is this just video, or do they need to put on a headset to experience it for themselves? How does that work?
That's a very good question. So obviously, depending on the project, how complex is the UX architect? And to tell you the truth, the most complicated UX architect project that I have was mobile AR. Again, the deliverables are really, really similar to the deliverables that you have when you design for mobile applications. But when it comes to, for example, HoloLens, designing for HoloLens. Design-wise, I really recommend to use MRTK. Of course, you can manipulate, you can change, you can do whatever you want with the look and feel of the elements. You can even add an element and use the code of the interaction on that element. There are so many things that you could do to make it look different. But deliverables, when it comes to standalone ARs, is basically videos or sometimes high fidelity, very, very high fidelity mockups. And obviously, when you have something like Tivori, you just let the user test it. Like they just wear the for example, Oculus Quest, if you're using that, and simply just go through the whole thing by themselves. And when it comes to you always have to differentiate between two things. You have the look and feel and the experience, immersive experience itself, and you have the UX architect. So when it comes to UX architect of any type of mixed reality applications, is normally on the paper, because it's a user flow. It's like a wireframe thing, because you just want to show the steps of what is happening, the interactions, and you don't need it to be immersive, because you just want to clarify the UX architect and the information architect to the developer. And that could be also one deliverable.
Clear. So I do have people also suggest to keep learning Unity, Unreal, C++, C#. I've also, what kind of tools people are using AO for design, said my answer would be kind of funny, but Blender 3D with VR add-on. Don't go that way. No, that's too much. I think that, it's great. Why not use Gravity Sketch at that point? If you're using a CAD tool, it depends probably also what you want to do afterward with it,
Exactly.
right? Because if it is a space, then maybe, or something.
Maybe you just want to be a UI artist, so it's just enough to use Unity and to create user, like shaders and materials and just, like creation of the element itself. That's enough. You don't need to even learn C#.
Yeah.
But if you want to then become an interaction designer, then you can do mockups for sure. You can still design the interaction metaphors, and then just make a mockup.
And how would a mockup look like in that case?
Like an animation in Tivori, or you can make it, there are even some people just to, showcase their interaction in their portfolio. They are using Adobe After Effects, and literally it's a video.
So it's a video then. Okay.
It's fake, yeah.
Clear. Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can do that. Why not? Definitely you can do that, but it depends what do you want. It's a little bit difficult to say, because at the end you're still gonna be a generalist when you move towards XR. Because it's not like, and nowadays with UX design, even UX design is a blanket term. You have to say, for example, I'm a UX researcher, I'm a UI designer, I'm a UX architect, I'm an interaction designer. But this still doesn't happen to XR.
No, and I think it's going to take a while.
XR is maybe too early, and
Yes.
We will get there.
We will get there, yes. I think that, and I think that one important step to get there is to get more people in. And also to get this more widespread, because as you mentioned, right, B2B is right now going to be the driver. That's where a lot of companies are certainly, also studios, right, they're working for business applications. But I think that, and I really hope that once this new wave of AR glasses for consumers are going to hit the market, and it's going to be a higher need for better user experiences, different applications, and then consequently for more people that need to jump in, right? Because that's at the end one of the really important things. We at Void really believe that we want to make creation and design more inclusive. And that's why when you are in our tools, we try to make that if you stretch a cube, you change the transparency, you add text, and you got basically a mock-up, right? You got that impression. So that's I think something that is gonna change, and we're certainly gonna get there. I do have one last reminder for everybody. So join our beta tester again, and I'm telling you because we are we are organizing also meetups. So we are organizing already meetups for our own in our own platform. We got one last week, and we challenge the different designers to recreate tic-tac-toe in 3D. Right, so and it's just something like playful, of course, but we will create more and more, and of course you will get the chance to talk and connect with people like Shiva, with people like many others of the designers that we got here and that are joining the community to share their experiences, and in general, like, start designing together spatially, right, straight away. So now it might seem, oh, but when am I gonna get my email? You're gonna get it. I promise you're gonna get it. But because we are really now polishing out some aspect, and we really want to get these meetups where people are gonna be in VR on their quest. Hey, let's solve a problem. Let's look at the boiler problem that Shiva brought. Hey guys, I have this one. Maybe you guys can bring your own. To be honest, so I have this. Maybe, hey, I am a meeting app. How can I vote on Post-it, right? Hey, let's try, right? Let's try to design how that's gonna look like. So this is really something that we really look forward to, and absolutely. Shiva, do you have any last any final words for all this community that's been following us?
Just want to thank people who came to this webinar, and I hope they could get something valuable out of it. And just one, let's say, advice. So if you're an artistic person, but for some reason you have to be in enterprise situation, never give up on doing your passion project on the art, because whatever I said about the, making enterprise application, like being so pragmatic, it's good. It makes you feel good, but at the same time, it makes you feel good to do movies in VR. Sky is your limit. Do it. Do art. I think this is the most convenient use case of VR and mixed reality, and it just brings people joy. And just go for it. And never limit yourself as a designer.
Absolutely. I think that these technologies and creativity are something that goes so closely together. So please keep experimenting, keep with all sorts of tools, and follow your passion. Guys, I really want to thank everybody. Again, follow Shiva on LinkedIn, or me on LinkedIn, or our YouTube page, or our LinkedIn page. What we do is really try to share the passion, share our love for design and XR. So thanks again, Shiva, for being here. And I'm pretty sure we're going to meet around. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
And we are done.